Welcome to The Come Up. This is the podcast about how people get to where they are, wherever that is, the nitty, the gritty, the raw, the real, the McNasty, and the good stuff. I'm here with Leese Olivine. Olivine.
Yeah.
Who recently got married at honeymoon. Yes. And is back in Eugene as a fabulous singer, performing artist extraordinaire, and dancer.
I mean, to the side.
Tell us about what you've been working on. Like, where did you go from here? We know each other from high school. And why I have Leese here is because she's one of those people that just like followed their dreams in performing arts and went off and made a career out of it. And to me, it is extraordinary when people follow their calling. And so I just want to hear about it. So what did you do? What have you been up to?
What did I do? It's been a whole interesting journey. Yeah, I mean, I was clear. Like, it's so sweet to connect with people that knew me when I was younger, because there's always this like, oh, like, you're still, like, nothing's, like, I've changed a lot, and, like, also nothing has changed. I was clear that I wanted to be, like, a performing singer and songwriter from the time I was, like, 11.
How did you know that?
I went to fucking Lilith Fair. I went, wow. Actually, like, maybe, like, 10 years ago, I watched the documentary that they made about
I don't think I've heard anybody talk about that in, like,
no, I know, because it, like, died out. But it's, like, not even a sad documentary. It's, like, this just regular documentary. Yeah. I was, like, weeping through the whole thing, because I was like, oh, my God, my childhood dreams. And a lot of them haven't come true, and there's, like, grief around that, too. You know, just, like, the things that you really think are so feasible. I'm like, I'm going to be totally performing on a stage with. Yeah. And I was like, Sarah McLachlan, and I saw Lilith Fair 98 in Portland with Erykah Badu, Sarah McLachlan, Indigo Girls, and Natalie Merchant.
If y'all don't know, man, wow.
Like that lineup.
Wow.
And that was just the main stage, and then there was all these incredible other artists. But I remember just being in that stadium. I was there with, like, my closest girlfriends, and I was just like, yeah, like, I'm going to write music, I'm going to perform. I didn't know about the teaching part. And after college, I got, you know, it was like, you get a degree in music, and most people are like, all right, where am I going to teach?
Yeah.
You know, because it's not necessarily just like...
So you got a degree in music.
Oh, yes. So, right. I also have ADHD, recent diagnosis, and so this conversation's going to go.
Same, but it'll be, yes. We're here for the word party.
So, yeah, so I stayed through high school. And I actually, like, right away did this detour, because my senior year of high school, I applied to Berklee College of Music. That was, like, the dream school. Yeah. At the time, it was the only school in the U.S. that was doing contemporary music, where you could study to be a performing singer-songwriter, write your own music, and do your own creative expression instead of, like, singing music by old and white guys. That was, like, those were my choices. Totally. And now there's a lot more programs, which is amazing. And if any young people want to talk to me about that, I've sent a lot of high schoolers off to contemporary music programs.
So you got this music degree, and now we're going to circle back and talk about, like, education in the mix of performing arts, because that is, like, a controversial thing.
For some people, to say.
Yeah, me too. But then you got the degree, and you're like, where am I going to go? Like, what am I going to do?
Right. And there was a lot of, like, basically you graduate from Berklee and you're walking, it's like graduation week, and you're walking around and everybody asks you, where are you going? Yeah. And there are literally 2 right answers and 1, like, acceptable answer if you're a songwriter. It's LA or New York.
Yeah.
You can say Nashville if you're a songwriter. People will be like, oh, rad, Nashville.
Okay.
I mean, this was actually kind of a pivotal moment, I think, just like and I took 7 years to get my undergrad, because I took a lot of time off, and I transferred. I did all kinds of interesting things, just following my path. I took a year off to move to Portland and, like, try and make my living as a singer-songwriter, just, like, prove to myself I could do it before I went and got the degree. It's very, very scattered. So I was, like, 24, 25 when I graduated. So it was, like, I was really clear what my priorities were, and my sister had a baby. They lived in Oakland, and I was like, I'm going to the Bay Area, and and, like, for me, I'm like, that's a rad music scene, you know. Definitely. And a big city, and growing up in Eugene, I'm like, that is an absolutely wonderful choice for a post, you know, school thing. But literally, every single person would look at me like, oh. You know, like it was basically like, so you're not going to give a go. You're not going to give it a go. Like, if you're not moving to LA or New York, you basically are like not going to actually try it.
That is literally the same for dance.
Really?
Like, to a T. It's like, oh, you didn't go, you failed.
Yeah.
Like, it's automatic.
Like, I hadn't even begun my career. And or like, oh, cute. Like, oh.
Yeah.
It was literally like a little sympathy head turn. Like, I told them a family member passed away.
How do you deal with that? Like, what inside you was like, I'm actually just going to do whatever the fuck I want to do anyway. And like, keep going. Like, how do you...
okay, first of all, I give like a lot of fucks. Like, I'm one of those people that like has made my career around basically doing my own thing and always starting my own business. Like, there's no room for me here. Okay, I'll do my own thing. There's no room for me here. I'll do my own thing. Like, making my own way.
That is so important. That right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't find a place for you somewhere, so you make your own.
That's why you're still doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's literally why.
It's because I've just like created my own spaces. And so people wouldn't know it from the outside because of that.
Right.
But I actually like really like care a lot about what people think. And I'm not one of those just like, whatever, I'll just do my own thing. Like, but somehow I still do it. And I think that comes, I'm just realizing this now in this conversation. Thank you.
Yes.
A little therapeutic.
Bring it up.
I'm like, but I'm realizing, like, I think from the time I started sharing my voice publicly, which was in 8th grade, I sang at a talent show at my school.
Uh-huh.
And it was the first time I like shared my voice. People were like, whoa. Like, it wasn't like, wow, you're so good, you should be, you know, it was like, that's an interesting sound coming from that little person. Like, and in high school, I never got solos, even though like, I thought I had a good voice, but it was like, it was different.
Yeah.
And then the songs I wrote, people would be like, I don't know how to, like, I worked with a branding person the year that I took off from college to like see how I could make it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to like work with a branding specialist. And they were like, you need to change your last name from Forkish because it's weird, because that's my given name. And they were like, it's weird. And also, I don't know how to brand your music, so you need to change it.
No.
And so like, I think I've always like, people have been like, your voice is weird. It's low. It's not high. The timbre's kind of something. Like, I always had this sense of like not really belonging any place to any genre, to any style. And then the music I'd write, people would be like, I don't know how to. And I still have like, 15 Spotify listeners or something. Like, nobody, people come to my shows and I think they have a good time, but I'm not making music that's like, that I'm clear is super mainstream or palatable.
Totally.
Or like, ooh, that really fits into the current like cultural whatever. And that's always been the case.
Yeah.
So I think because of that, people are looking at me like, oh, you're moving to the Bay Area? I'm like, yeah, that tracks. Like,
totally.
I know that was just like, okay, well, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that this is the only way that I survive is by living in this art form. And I don't know what it's going to look like. And, and if you'd asked me in 2010 when I graduated, like what I thought I'd be doing and, approaching 2025, I would not have had the answer that is the truth now, but
totally.
But it's been organic because I've just been like, all right, now this.
Yeah.
And the running theme is I'm always my own boss.
Yeah.
I'm always starting the thing. I'm in numerology. I'm number one for anyone that's into numerology, which means like the originator.
Yeah.
The name of that. So I'm just like, I like to have started like 5 different a cappella groups, and I started a nonprofit, and I started like 20 different choirs. And, I'm like, I will start the thing.
Right.
To make it happen for myself.
Yeah. I relate to that 100%. We're like so similar. It's actually
so suspicious. I mean, when I moved back and I was like seeing what you're doing, I'm like, I feel like Vanessa has been like living the same parallel life in dance.
Yeah.
I'm so curious. So I don't know your story. I just know Escape Academy. I know like you danced through high school.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
And now you're doing this, but I don't know, like, I'm so curious about what the interim period was for you. You said like this education piece, if you want to go.
Yeah.
Like, did you go to school? And
I did. Okay, so just to draw all the parallels, because this is like, if you're listening to this is where you're going to find yourself. So like, I was a kid, like I had exceptional talent in dance, specifically tap dance. and then like branched out. But then when I had gotten to high school, I got the same type of shit. Oh, you're good, but it's too much of this. Oh, you're good, but you don't have this. And then of course there's like, well, you don't look like everyone else type of thing. Like there's all that kind of stuff. So at that time, that's when I started dance team. Because there was another dance team. I don't know if you remember this drama from back in the day, but there was another dance team going that I was a part of. And I was like, this is not speaking to who I am culturally.
Yeah.
And so I started my own. So that's how that happened.
But we were in the one that wasn't the one you started. The one that
we were in the one that I started.
Oh, we were. I was in the one that you started.
Yeah.
Yes. So I love that. My story.
Yeah,
I don't remember those details.
I don't think anybody really realized what was going on, because one day I was just like you said, I was just like, well, there's not a place for me here, so I'm going to create a place. But then we got this, then there's this friction that actually, it's crazy because some of those people are still around and lead dance things, and it's like still there. But like, I think from the get-go, just like you're saying, it's like, okay, well, if I want to make it, if I want to keep being able to do what I love to do, like my lifeline, I'm just going to have to do it myself. It's crazy, right? It's nuts. Yeah.
I know. It takes a certain kind of person.
It does. And I often think about where I got that shit from, because I mean, my whole family's kind of like that. And in high school or like, when you're that age, when you're transitioning into college or whatever, or going from college to adulthood, and you have to make a choice like that, or you have that awareness of like, no one's going to do this shit for me. Like, that's a big thing. And a lot of people never get there. And like, when you're an artist, like, you got to get there. Otherwise you'll be out of work and you'll sit.
Yeah.
And your relationship with your art becomes like not healthy.
And what's hard is like, having worked with so many youth as you do too, I'm sure you've seen this, is it doesn't matter how fucking talented you are. So like, I've had kids that were just like the most incredible singers that could go so far.
Yeah.
And then they graduate high school, and I'm not curating the opportunities for them.
Right.
And there's this like letdown of like, oh, people don't just see the talent and like scoop it. I don't know. I think that there's a lot of stuff in like the media and film and TV and all this like talent scouting, and you just like get scooped up, and that just isn't really happening. Like,
it's not. And I always tell my students, like, it's not ever the most talented person in the room. It's the hardest working.
Right.
So like, you better get that muscle together.
Right.
Anybody can dance. Anybody, I mean, I'm not a singer, but I'm like, anybody can like acquire these skills with enough practice. Absolutely. But like, you got to get the muscle of like the hard work.
Yeah.
And which I think that's what it's about. It's like that switch that's like, okay, I'm going to do this. It's going to be weird. It's going to be hard. It's hard, but like, I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah.
But then I did go to college for Spanish. Like, I went for dance. I went to San Francisco State.
Okay.
Yeah, and I came back and was a dance major. And again, that wasn't for me. I was like, what is happening? Like, what in the white? It was just not working. So I got a Spanish degree that I've never used, but I've loved language since middle school.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I fought with my parents. I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to move to LA and do the thing. And my mom was like, absolutely the fuck not. She was a professor. Like, that wasn't happening.
Wow.
And then I met the person I married in college, and it was fucking terrible. It ruined, I'm not going to say ruin. We're going to take that back. All of my 20s was compromised. I have beautiful children, but like, my dreams were very much on hold.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I get that.
It was like a situation where it was like, I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do. And dance became number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5.
Yeah.
That sidetracked my ass. Hella. For almost 10 years. Like 10 years.
That makes sense. I mean, parenting is...
It wasn't the parenting.
Oh, it wasn't the parenting.
It was the partnership. It was the marriage. Yeah. The parenting was great.
I got you. I got you. Okay.
By the time I had opened this place, I had just gotten divorced and lost my mom within a 6-month period.
Oh.
And my kids were tiny. And I had no car. Yeah, no car, no money, no nothing. And like, I started Escape when my kids were like 4 and 2. So it wasn't the kids. It was the relationship. It was just like very unhealthy. The reason why, there's so many reasons why I started this studio, but divorce, losing a parent, deep grief. I'm like, who am I? I'm not looking my best, feeling my best, whatever. The only way I know how to create community is through dance. It's like my favorite way to do it. Like, it's so real to me. It's authentic. I don't have to try hard. I can just show up and be myself. And other people show up and they're themselves. And it generally creates high vibes. And that is this.
Yeah.
So, like, that's how I got here. It was just, I know what it looks like. You know, it looks like, oh my God, you're just that. But it was very much like trauma. You know?
I actually don't even, I'm like not even surprised to hear this, because I think like the more conversations I have with people and the older that I get, the more I'm like, everybody that's doing something that matter. I mean, I shouldn't say everybody, but I think that most people that are doing something that is extraordinary and is lifting up other people and looks from the outside like this, like kind of perfectly put together thing,
right?
Is actually from a place of grief or trauma. It's like it's like the overcoming. It's the how do I survive the thing.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. All the coolest artists that I know have like been through the motions.
Definitely. And
there's like that's a real thing. And for people who are listening who are like, how can I possibly? Because you might just be in, you know, I know it's like kind of cliche, but like talking about the metamorphosis process. Like
I was just gonna go there.
You're in the goo.
Yeah.
You're in the goo stage, and we've all been there.
Yeah.
And it's like in that stage, it feels like nothing is possible, and then something's gonna happen that's gonna be like, wow, my little caterpillar self like had no fucking idea what was gonna emerge out of the most pain I've ever experienced in my life.
Yes. Yeah. And I think what like that moment is like, you feel like nothing is possible. It's the same moment that everything is possible.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's all about like the moment that I changed my life. Like I was like literally on the phone with Women's Space, like in the corner, like
wow,
freaking the fuck out.
Wow.
And the lady on the phone, this is all she said to me. My life was different. She said, you have two choices. She said, you can learn how to live in the situation you're in, and there's so many resources for you, and you can just keep going, or you can leave. And I was like, holy shit, I have a choice. Like, it never occurred to me. And it was like, I just have to make a different choice. And I just, wow. But it's like that perspective of like, I am in the darkest place.
Yeah.
But if I look at it, I also have an opportunity to like, just have a different perspective, do it differently. Right. You know?
Something so simple, but that can be so profound. Like, I have choice and agency. Like, we always have. I think about that with like young people who are trying to decide what the next step is after college. Is like this reminder of like you can always make another choice.
Oh,
every like you can make a choice, and then like I have quit exactly 3 school jobs in the last 2 years since I moved to Eugene. I'm like not even ashamed. Like the school system is an oppressive colonial state that like I cannot be a party to anymore. And I've tried, and I moved back here to teach at Willamette High School. And I was there for 2 months, and I was like, oh, ouch, no, can't. And then I taught at another school for exactly 2 weeks before I quit. And I'm like not, and I've got friends that are like, you know, kind of looking at me side eye, like, why you can't stick anything out? I'm like, yeah, I can. I'm sticking out the thing that's real. Look at what I've been doing for 25 years. No, I can't stick out a school job working for someone else where I have to use punitive measures to like, quote unquote, put kids in line. I can't do, like, my spirit can't tolerate that anymore. So it's going to look on the outside like I'm a quitter. Or like I'm not showing up for the youth, but I am in my own way. And
talk about that. Talk about being authentic to yourself and like how important it is to maintain that if you want like, or how, what for whatever reason, but like longevity purposes, fulfillment purposes, like how important is it to stay true to like, to your voice, to your soul, to your,
I think it's everything. Well, I'm also divorced. And so, and okay, like, I think
not that it's, but
no, I really, like the other day I was sharing with, so one of the things that I'm working on now or, you know, building now is called Queer Choir. This, new communities, singing space, that is feeling like really aligned for a number of reasons I could talk about more. But anyway, we were at our little potluck and going around and just telling stories. And I was talking about being divorced. And I was like, I actually like the more that time passes, the more strong and powerful. Let's say I'm bad. I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
Hard to do.
And there's still stigma, as much as people say like, oh, we're living in 2024 and like whatever, it's totally fine. You can get divorced. Like there were people that cut me out. There were people that like, and because I was the one that left, there were people that like called me the bad guy or was like, but like, I have been queer since high school.
Right.
So this is kind of speaking into like an identity story for me. That's a thread throughout my life. Like, no, I've known I'm queer. I married a cis man because I'm pan. So like I'm attracted to all different kinds of people and, whatever, fell in love with this guy in college, similar kind of thing, like in music school. We were like all playing music and we're like, we're going to live our dreams, playing music. And it was like not at all the right person for me. Like then like now I'm like, whoa, I cannot believe that 12 years of my life, that was the person that I spent the most time with and lived with and hearing reflections back from people that love me, like after the fact, they're like, whoa, it was wild to see you in that, but we just had to like let you hear your journey. But for me, it was this like, this just kind of like knocking on the door or like this just little voice. It was probably like 5 or 6 years. The last 5 or 6 years of my marriage that I was like, this, you are not in right place. And like just knowing that and literally was every single spring, it was like seasonal. Every single spring I would talk about ending it. And I would talk about it with him. So I would be like, I really need to be with a woman or like in a queer relationship. Right. I really need to be living into the fullness of my queer identity isn't working for me anymore. And then I just like kind of go back to it. But it's interesting now to reflect back and see how it would move with the seasons. Like birth. Right. A season where like you're watching everything around you become new. It was this reminder like this is possible. Yeah. And then finally it is. And then I think what happened when I made that decision is everything else became crystal clear. It was I had been running this nonprofit for 7 years that was just draining my energy. It was, I think I was doing good work in the community and people were so upset with me when I closed it. Like, we're not done doing the work. It was an advocacy, a cappella nonprofit, and we were putting on a festival every year to highlight marginalized voices that aren't highlighted in the community specifically. It started as a platform for women's voices and then moved on to showcase people of the global majority, queer folks, and like just giving people a space to come perform and teach and be the feature. Because every single a cappella conference that I had been to was just like all white straight men.
That is so shocking.
I know. You're on a call with that. So we were just carving out our own space. And again, that's an example of something that felt like I needed to create this space. Right. And then things have their seasons. They have their timelines. And if someone had told me when I was younger, like, you're going to live like 10 lives in your life.
Oh my God, it's so true. You're going to live 10 to 20, 30 lives in your life.
I know, right? And I think that young people now are like more, but they're into it, right? Because things aren't but our parents did this thing where they were miserable in a job for 30 years or a relationship so that they could celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary and get their pension, and nobody's talking about anything, and we're like, trauma? What's trauma?
Yes.
So that's who raised us. So it's like we are already breaking this generational cycle. Totally. And then our kids are just, the younger folks are gonna keep doing it.
I feel like that moment when you decide to make a choice for yourself, you're like reconnecting, again, we live these lives and we go in these spirals and all to get back to our center, but like you get there one day and you're like, I'm actually staying here for a second, here's who I am, here's what I'm doing, and then you do it, and then the world opens up.
Or plot twist. So then, and then there are these things that we have, like, we have agency, always.
Yes.
In so many ways. And then there are the things that we can't control. And I think that what was like when I referred to, peaking at 25, whatever, I mean, I guess it was more like 28 was when I peaked. I think that I had this sense that everything was just going to be uphill.
Yeah.
And I even had people tell me that, like, so I worked at, I haven't even spoken about this, but I worked at Oakland School for the Arts.
Okay.
In Oakland. For 10 years, and this is the era of my life that I like refer to as my golden years.
Yeah,
like, oh my god, it was a school that was started by the mayor of Oakland at the time, Jerry Brown, but who then became the governor. So we were like, I just got to meet all these celebrities, and I performed, and we traveled the world. And my group that I founded, I got to the school, and they didn't have contemporary a cappella; they just had like more traditional choirs,
right?
Like, this is something I would sing in DC at U of O, and had my roots in contemporary a cappella. This is like pre-Pitch Perfect. Now I can like reference Pitch Perfect. Which, by the way, is based off of Delisi in the years that I was in it. It's based off of a book that is nonfiction called Pitch Perfect, The Quest for Collegiate A Cappella Glory. And Lisa Forkish is like the lead character in that story because I was the music director.
Yeah.
So like this weird, this was a moment where I'm like, oh, I'm going to be famous.
Right.
Because there's this book about me, and I was interviewed by this GQ writer, and now I'm starting this teen group, and they were on NBC's The Sing Off, and I was so sure from there, like it was just up.
Yeah, I remember this time period.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I felt so fabulous.
Yeah.
I was still, and now I'm like, when I hang out with like 28-year-olds, I'm like, oh yeah, like the frontal lobe is just like, like I thought I was so grown because I'd been married for like 4 years already, because I got married so young. Had this like, I mean, we didn't own property, but like I have a house with furniture and a husband, and so and I felt really grown. But now I'm like, oh wow, I just was really, there was so much perspective I didn't have.
Would you say, because you're referring to that as your golden years, for whatever reason.
I mean, I'm referring to my golden years in the way that we refer to like the MGM era of Hollywood as golden years. Like, not that I actually think it's the best years of my life.
Right.
I'm clear the best years of my life are still to come.
Yes.
But that it was this like really sparkly time.
Right. Would you say that like in those moments, like, was that your success? Like, is that how you had envisioned it? Because earlier you were like, well, I have all these ideas of what it would be like and where I would be at this time, that time, the other. Yeah. Would you say that was it? Or, like, what is that? How does that connect to that feeling that you had when you were younger, when you're, like, picturing it?
Well, actually, like, I think it wasn't what I had envisioned, because it was me behind the scenes.
Right.
So it was me as an educator, and I was getting to do fabulous things, and my youth that I was leading, and at that time, like, I didn't know that was as fabulous as it was.
Right.
Now,
I mean, that's pretty amazing.
No, I think it totally was. And now I'm like, oh, you had no idea in the moment. Because in the moment, I was like, oh, but my solo career. I'm neglecting my solo artistry to do everything for these kids, and my whole life revolved around like planning their trips and their competitions and arranging their music and everything. I mean, and the only side note, the only way I was even able to do this workaholic, like throw myself into this group called Vocal Rush, and like basically like they were my life, was because I was in a marriage that I was not interested in spending time with my husband.
Right. So you were just, I'm out.
So I was like, like I would go on long trips, and it didn't bother me to be away from him. Like now I'm with someone that I don't want to, like, I want a simpler life.
Yeah.
At a time I had some heartbreak about neglecting that.
Do you still have that?
No, because I think everything is just clearer now. Like, it's not so, there's this one dream and it's gonna look this way. Yeah. And it's more like I had this perspective of I'm making a living in the performing arts, music and singing specifically, and that's a gift. And that's incredible. And especially like right now in this economy. And the devastating part of my career was when I quit OSA because my own business was doing so well, and I was traveling around the country and the world coaching, and it was like my role directing vocal recitation at the school had led to enough prominence in this weird niche, like acapella, very darky, but like people were hiring me to come in, and I was able to do that. So I was like, oh, I'm going to move on from the school and just be like sole proprietor, just do my thing.
Yeah.
And that was like my last year was 2019 to 2020. And I had all these festivals lined up, and I was performing.
Yeah.
So like I went from like 100 to 0.
Yeah.
I had no income, and I had no fallback, and it was a terrifying few years. So I was in a really dark place from like 2020 to like yesterday.
Yeah.
Now, through all of that, I have this perspective of like, there's peaks and there's valleys, and the whole fucking thing is so non-linear. And I'm grateful for the decade that I had working with these youth and getting to do all the fabulous, sparkly things. But like now, what I'm building feels more authentic because I'm living more of an authentic life. Like when I
Personally.
When I started Vocal Ranch, it was all about like winning competitions.
Yeah.
You know, and in my last couple of years directing the group, we stopped competing and we started improvising, and we started like, I don't know, just create.
Yeah.
And we like did an album that was all the students' original music. And so we started veering away from that. And I was like, oh yeah, this is the stuff.
Yeah.
The stuff that isn't putting power in other people's hands. Where they can say you're good enough or you're not good enough. And that's why I always say, like, I still work with groups that do the varsity vocals, which is the competition circuit. And I always say to them, like, you have to be so clear that you are competing not to win, but for some, as a collective have to come up with your, like, this is the message we want to share through our art.
Right.
This is the kind of connective bonding experience that we want to have through, like, striving to become more and more excellent with every step of the way of the competition. But if your sole goal is to win, you've handed your power over to other people because someone else is going to decide that. And you might be there. And I have had so many experiences with groups that I sang in and groups that I directed where we were arguably the best, but the judges didn't think so. So it's all subjective, right?
Yeah.
So I think now I'm just in this like zoomed out space. I'm also trying to kind of like decolonize this singing art form in my own little way, which is just like making spaces for people that didn't study it formally, and making spaces for people to reclaim their voice. Like singing and dance are similar, and
very
it's
similar.
Like you don't need any kind of degree or formal training to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you could start at any stage of life.
Any stage of life, I truly believe that. And I think that what you're talking about, this is how I break it down. I break it down calling, purpose, service. So like my calling is dance. Like I just know, like from when I was little, just like you know, you just, I'm like, this is going to be my thing. Yeah. And then my purpose is like young, I figured out that I was like a teacher. Like, you know, I didn't expect that, but I'm like, I have a gift for teaching. And then my service is like creating the space for the community, for people to like live that and like breathe that and experience that. But like that journey is like not the same as me being like, I'm going to be on TV or on tour or whatever.
Yeah.
But like the willingness to listen to the call in the first place. Okay, like dance is calling me, it's like poking me, it's bothering me, and just to roll with it. Yeah. And let it unfold without judgment. Yeah. And take you to wherever you go, to Oakland School of the Arts and away and whatever. It's like that is like that's how the universe works. Yeah. Like that magic. If you just surrender.
Yeah.
To like,
there's some like listening involved.
There's a lot of listening involved. And I think that's like to your point of just like, if somebody else is in control or you put yourself in situations where you need that external validation all the time. Yeah. Like you're listening to other people and sometimes you can't even listen to you. Like you gotta listen to the will of whatever you want to call it, God, universe or whatever. Yeah. Like that shit speaks. Yeah. You know, and it's often very quiet and it's often when you don't want to hear it. But it's like when that is the lead or that is like what you're, you know, inspired by, like the path is very much maybe like a little bit more rugged, but like so much more purposeful, which is like kind of what it sounds like. Like you've been on this journey of like, well, I wanted to go here and it took me all these places and you've impacted so many people. Like how many students have you had? Thousands probably. Yeah. I mean, like, but you're like one life touching thousands of people. Like, that's an incredible. I'm going to cry. That's like an incredible thing, like, to think about. Just because you, like, one day you were like, went to the Lilith Fair and you're like, I'm going to sing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then I think there's some sweetness in, like, seeing my students who are now, like, my first graduating class this year all turned 30. Wow. They are 5 years older than I was when I started teaching them. Right. And so, like, I'm seeing how, like, there's a kind of vulnerability and tenderness in knowing that there's this whole crew of people who are adults now who I taught when I was, like, I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And they've watched, I mean, I had, really special story. A former student was here in Eugene this summer, and it was, like, really incredible to, we've stayed in touch, but to, like, kind of connect in our current lives. They're 24 now, but OSA, the cool thing about OSA was that it was a middle and high school.
Oh,
so
cool.
If a student started in 6th grade and stayed all the way through, I got to teach them for 7 years.
Wow.
And I was there for 10 years. So there's a couple of generations that I saw all the way through. This young person was one of them. I mean, they're adult now, but their name's B. DeVoe, and they're, like, one of the most talented students I ever had. They're incredible. And they headlined Pride this summer. So I brought them up to Pride, and they performed with an a cappella group that I put together for Pride too. I mean, and all of it is, like, you know, they're like in their own league as a performer. But we kind of sat and we're, like, having conversations. They're teaching now, you know, and they have watched me. I mean, mostly through social media, I guess, but it's also, like, seeing touched in throughout the years. They have, like, watched me transform as a human in so many ways. I mean, and obviously I have too, but it's, like, it's this reminder that, like, an adult in a young person's life is not a fixed person. And if in a young person at any age and an adult in relationship over time are both going to get to watch each other grow.
Yes.
And I think that the way that we think about education is, like, the adult is this, like, fixed person with like knowledge and wisdom, and then you get to watch the kid grow.
Right.
It's like this beautiful honoring, like, oh, it's so amazing that I get to watch this journey. But it's been cool to now have these students that are adults that are reflecting that to me. Like, wow, some of it is, like, as the education system has changed. Like, I used to have a GPA requirement for vocal reg.
Right.
I would never do that.
We were just talking about that yesterday. Yeah.
And all kinds of punitive things that were in place that at the time felt like this was how we maintain excellence, because that is what I'd been taught. Excellence is maintained through, you know, here's the bar, and if you don't meet the bar, you're out. Yeah. Instead of here's the bar, if you don't meet the bar, what kind of conversation could happen? What kind of restorative process is there? What's going on? Like, if somebody's not meeting the bar, there's a reason for it, and you can just cancel them as a human. Yeah. I mean, I'm getting into some of my, like, abolitionist philosophy. Yeah. But it is deeply embedded in our arts institutions.
Definitely.
And so I think, like, to go, I'm coming back around to the question of, like, education. Like, I'm now in a place, I used to be like, oh yeah, you got to go to college, you have your degree. And now I'm like, no, you don't. No. Yeah. You absolutely, because, like, I still think I'm healing wounds from having a music degree. Like, I think what you are talking about, this authenticity, it can be completely squashed in the context of the wrong educational environment.
And I mean, it's not like we get a chance to experience all the colleges and universities that are out there because, you know, the barriers. I'm sure there is one out there that would meet, you know, but I didn't find it. And I agree. Like, I would say it gave me, I have to really think about that. But the reason I quit was because I was basically barred from graduating for the same type of reasons you were talking about. Like, well, you've got this, but not quite this. Yeah. I'm like, well,
we're not, like, seeing a whole person, right? It becomes about just, like, here are these policies, or that, like, we have to have everything like standardized. Yeah. Instead of and I think that being able to see a person as a complex being is something that an institution can't do at a smaller school, like the school that you're running. Like, you have an opportunity, and you know, the work that I get to do now outside of school, like running my own school, like we get to decide. We get to decide who belongs and who gets to stay. Right. And the answer might be everyone.
Totally.
Yeah. And that's radical, actually. I think in a way.
It definitely is. It definitely is, because if somebody that's running something doesn't do that, society does that anyway. You know, in school, if it's not your teachers, it's your peers. You know, sometimes it's your home. You know, or your family. You know, and so it is radical.
It can show up in so many ways.
It is.
And for a lot of kids coming here, this might be the only place where they get to be free.
It's a lot. Yes. It is. And I think it took me a few years to really realize that, because the space attracts everyone, but also like a demographic of people that are just like, that need dance or that need a community. And a few years in, I was like, holy shit. You know, and now when I look back and because I write grants too, and I look through all the types of kids and families and stuff, I'm like, wow, you know, like that's that seed, that calling. I'm like, if you would have asked me if I would have worked with kids with incarcerated parents or, you know, drug addictions or immigrants, or like, I wouldn't have been able to answer that for you, because that wasn't at the time, that wasn't my definition of success.
Right.
But now I'm like, what else is there? You know, what else is there?
Right.
You know?
How many years?
This is the 11th year.
Wow.
But I had a studio that failed. I had one that failed that I opened when I was like 24, and I was pregnant, and I was still married. So it couldn't, you know what I mean? I had to get my authenticity together for it to be able to do this.
And that stuff, I mean, like, you're touching on something that is so crucial, this authenticity piece, but also like in that is an infectiousness of like I think that when we're in our bodies, when we're aligned with our truth and what we know we're here to do, there's an energy to that.
I'm here with the robo.
Okay. Great.
I'm here with it.
But I think that it you're attracting the people that you're attracting, because like I see that. I mean, even through social media, like I don't think I left Facebook. And then I got back on, and it was kind of fun to like restart Facebook fresh.
Right.
You know, but I remember seeing you as a suggested friend, probably just because mutual friends. Yeah, it was cool stuff. And I was like, Vanessa, and he's a friend. And we hadn't even seen each other since like
literally high school.
20 years. But like through the internet, I was like I felt an attraction to you and your work and what you're doing.
Right.
And that that speaks to something about the power that you're standing in that is nothing other than like you-ness. It's like you are you.
Thank you.
And you're in that, and it's apparent. Like nobody can be like, oh, this person's fake, or they're in it for these reasons or these reasons. And so I immediately feel at ease around you. Like my nervous system,
I love that.
Just like relax. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. And I feel like personally, I spent, like I said, about 10 years really fucking uncomfortable, which I had to go through. I wouldn't change it. I would repeat it. I would do it 10 times, because now I understand what it's like. Like I had to really learn what it was like to cultivate the opposite thing, like the peace, and how important it is for people to have that, even if it's only with me, or even if it's only in this space, or like even, you know, because I have kids too, like, and, you know, they've experienced both sides, and just being like, you know, figuring out how to make that happen, you know, and especially when the world is the way it is in general. Like we all have all this shit going on. I just want to like bring this out because we're going there. First of all, what is your sign?
Oh, well, I'm a Cancer sun, and Cancer rising.
Wow.
And I have Cancer in like 2 other planets. I have like a lot of Cancer.
Very watery.
I'm like super watery. I'm a Libra moon.
Okay.
We're in
totally
like public facing kind of persona and career and professional. I'm an Aries.
Okay.
So like, I recently found that out. I was like, Oh, okay. Yeah. That's why I'm not like just hiding in a corner as like this watery, emotional, sensitive cancer person. Yeah. And like how this thing I made. It's like, but I think it's part of like what I'm realizing now in the spaces I'm curating, like what's attracting people to me.
Yeah.
Is because I'm like, here's a space. Here I am. I'm like, I look like I'm extroverted. Blah, blah, blah. But then you come into the space and I'm like, ooh, like really fucking awkward, really weird, really schmooshy, really sensitive.
Oh, schmooshy. I love that.
I love schmooshy. Just like wandery, like sensitive. And then I think I put people at ease.
Definitely.
Like, oh, okay, I can be my weirdest,
definitely,
like messiest self.
Okay, so I just wanted to so there's that. I got like two things I gotta bring my life in right now.
Okay.
So the first thing I wanted to say, and we can run wherever we want with this, is just that like one of the things I had to really tell myself, because you're talking about, okay, I had to put my solo career to the side, or I had this like feeling of that at some point, which I totally had. And I would say personally that I wouldn't say that I struggle with it, but I would say I came to a realization that everything can happen. And it's like kind of a self-limiting thing where I think I would spend time making myself angry, being like, well, if I do this, I can't do this. Yeah. Or if I'm a mom, I can't do this. Or if I'm in a partnership, I can't, we do these things, put ourselves in these boxes. Yeah. And one day I was like, well, why can't I do it all? And then I was like, well, I'm telling myself I can't do it all. Yeah. And then I really started to wrap my head around, well, time isn't real. Yeah. So it could happen when I'm 40. It could happen when I'm 50. Like
that stuff.
Yeah. And just being like, because if I look back at life and all the experiences that I've had, I'm like, time isn't real. Like even real. I can't put a time on anything. I just know how it feels in like layers of like evolution from like the root through the crown. Yeah. I don't know the time. Yeah. So like, just being in this space now of like, okay, well, because I do pursue a solo career at the same time, but it doesn't feel like a battle within me. No. And I'm wondering, like, is that something that you would ever consider? Or are you totally like over it? Like, are you, or is that...
No. I'm in it. And I like, you are it. I am in it. So one of the things that I'm working on, one of my weaknesses, or I don't know, an area.
I was going to ask you that anyway, and I'm glad you brought it up.
An area for growth. Oh, I could speak about it all day. I'm very real about where I struggled. Yeah. One is that like I speak a lot of things out loud or to myself that aren't true, and then I like have to check myself. And one of them is like, oh, that I've neglected my solo career, because like what I haven't said is that I put out a new album 2 years ago.
What?
And that, like, I played...
You should have walked us in here and said, like, I have an album out, bitches! Like, what?
So, even, wow. In 2012, which was, like, the year that I founded Vocal Rush, I put out an album. And in 2017, I've been putting out 5 albums out. And
Wait,
so I've been writing music and producing
Where
music.
can we find your out? Are they on iTunes? Like,
yeah. What? Well, so I have a solo career. I've been doing it this whole time. I think it's just like, I speak these little like half-truths to myself that are like, well, I'm not performing. I mean, there is no Lilith Fair, but I'm like, I'm not touring, or I'm not,
Not yet.
Not yet. And also, one of the damaging things about music school for me was like, it basically encourages you to live inside of comparative thinking. Yeah. And comparative thinking is like death to joy, death to authenticity, death to like everything that is good and pure and true. Yeah. Because you can't be in your own power if you're like somebody else over there is doing this.
Rewind. Like that, listen to that 10 times.
Because we're all different, but I'm speaking this like not from a mountaintop, but from a literal valley. I'm like in a pool of water at the bottom of the valley, be like, you can't be in your power when you're comparing yourself to other people. Because I probably did it yesterday on social media, but I'm clear that it's something that harms me, which is also why I take breaks from social media. Yeah, because I'll get on there. So what I mean to say, ADHD, is that I went to school with a lot of people who are actively or have come into contact with through my career. A lot of people that I see on social media are doing the thing that I a part of me would like to be doing in addition to or instead, such as touring, performing, or, you know, just running community programs that are much larger and viral on TikTok. For example, a friend of mine runs Gaia Music Collective. If anybody has seen their TikToks, they do the like one day choirs, and a lot of them are viral, and they have like hundreds of people coming to spaces in Brooklyn like a couple times a week to sing. And I'm like, well, that's my friend, you know?
Yeah.
And the truth is, I'm like, that's my friend, and I'm so fucking proud of them, and like I help mentor them, and like that's a cool thing.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of my former students are like doing really incredible things that like I can sit and envy about it and be like, they're living my dream.
Yeah.
That's not actually how I feel. That's a mode of thinking that music school kind of put me in, where we're always pitted against each other.
Yeah.
There is room for me to be doing my thing and then to be doing their thing. And like you said, there's all this and not or.
Yes.
So yeah, I have been doing my solo career. I haven't put 100% into it, which is why I have like 15 Spotify listeners and like a few hundred plays on my videos on YouTube and things like that. I don't have internet notoriety as a solo artist. And I'm really proud of the work that I put out in this most recent album. Like I listened to it. I like actually, this is one that I actually listened to. I'll even admit it. I will put it on and I'll be like, I'm really proud of this.
Yeah.
And there are, you know, even if there are just 5 people that listen to it regularly and relate to my lyrics and get inspiration, and I know that there are. They've reached out, they've been like, oh my God, your song Murmuration just like speaks to me. Or Witching Hour, I like knew that was like a thing that was in my life. And these were all the songs that I wrote in the Goo stage. So this is like my album that I put out around this transformative process. Mm-hmm. And I've also always been clear that I'm a small stage artist because I like the intimacy. So like on August 22nd, I had a show at the Jazz Station. It was my first show besides just like, you know, kind of playing at a cafe or at Pride or, you know, kind of things where people are walking in and out. My first like kind of listening room I've had in a couple of years. And there was like 50 people there.
Wow.
And we had an amazing time. And we're like, I like to, my shows, I like to, you know, bring everybody in from the beginning. So it's not this like audience and performer. And afterward, you know, people share that they cried and they laughed and they were moved and they felt like they were a part of something. And I have been clear since I was much younger. When I think when I realized like the big stages weren't as realistic as I thought. Mm-hmm. I also realized like quality over quantity. Yeah. Sort of something like, okay, like I might reach 50 people once a year in a room when I have time beyond my teaching to do a solo show.
Right.
And that to me equals success.
Yes.
And so sometimes it's like this
quality moment.
Yeah. And I actually, I don't know, the older I get, also the more I'm like, I kind of like that my shit's weird and like my music isn't commercial and, you know, like I'm just, but I would say like, I do wonder if I'd never gone to Berklee, would I've always been in this power of like knowing that what I do that's unique is just that. And that's beautiful as it is. And it doesn't need to be compared to anything else. Because I remember recording my first little EP was like horrible. It was like home recording. Yeah. You know, whatever. So my dorky little like 15-year-old songs. But I remember passing it out to my friends at South. People were like, you recorded and, you know, I made a jewel case and I made a little thing. And people were like, this is so good. This is so amazing. And it was my weird stuff. Yeah. You know? And I think if I had just, there is the part of me, I'm glad I got the training I got, but I don't believe in having regrets because I think life unfolds the way it's supposed to. I don't regret being married to this man for 12 years too. It's just like all this is just how it is. How it went, and I couldn't be me without all these things. But I do sometimes wonder, and I do want to like also always encourage people, like if going to school, you have to have like a really tough skin, I think, to go to art school. Yeah. And know going into it, like, all right, I got to sort of like those blinders. You got to get that ready. So to answer your question really long-windedly, like, yes, I will always be nurturing my solo career in whatever way I have capacity for. And I kind of think being in a small town again,
it's good.
I'm like, oh, I could totally play like the biggest stage possible.
Yeah, you totally
in
could.
10 years. Yeah. That's very realistic.
Yeah.
Whereas in Oakland, you know, it was I played SF Jazz Center, and that was like my little peak moment.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, you know?
Yeah. Okay, my big last question.
Okay.
What advice would you give? I don't want to give it like to a certain age group, but like if anybody wanted to have a career in the arts, like what would you say? People ask me that all the time, like what? But that's like the question. What advice do you have for me? And it's like, yeah.
Well, I guess, and this isn't meant to sound like elder millennial.
Not elder.
Like any kind of judgment or it's not meant to sound judgmental.
Totally.
And I think like in the spirit of this sort of running thread through this conversation about authenticity and listening to yourself and finding that truth, like I would say, because I know the impact that it has on me, like finding time and space regularly to tune everything out except your own voice is important. And I think that in the TikTok Reels era, I think it's really easy to feel like the authentic voice is what I'm seeing looking back at me on my phone,
right,
when I'm making art for my people. And I agree that really matters. And I'm not saying don't do that.
Totally.
There's probably some profound knowings that can happen when like everything that is an outside influence is turned down or off.
Yeah.
And you can just be with yourself.
Yeah.
To find like, okay, I'm not tapping into this part of my artistry because it's a trend or because I'm getting likes or because I'm feeling like it's really easy to basically power our careers on external validation.
Oh, we were just talking about that last night. It's very easy. Very easy.
There's some like Buddhist practices that I wouldn't say that I'm like deep in or anything, but that I've kind of, touched on from the outside and found value in it, which is like the idea of non-attachment to everything. So like in the same way that you're like, oh, somebody says some shit about my latest song that I wrote that hurts my feelings, so I'm not going to attach to that. Same thing, somebody's like, this song like is so beautiful and it's the best one you've ever written, like I'm not going to attach to that either. Like, and I think like
that's so important.
It's just to like highlight, it's not just like that's the only way to live.
Yeah.
But I do think that's like an angle that we haven't touched on yet, which is like try to find the intrinsic motivation that you can with inside yourself, so that you don't one day end up like me in 2020 where just crash and burn because your entire sense of self is built on an identity that has been fed by an outside world. Don't do that, or do, and then you'll get there, and then you'll do. Like I feel like I've had, your podcast is called The Come Up. I feel like I've had like so many come ups.
Yeah,
it's like and remembering. Okay, then I guess the second piece of advice is like remembering that nothing is linear, and it's not going to be this one up.
Yeah,
and that you get to take a left turn or do a 180 anytime you want to, right, at any point, according to what feels aligned with your own journey.
And life might throw you a 180.
Right.
And then you might have to, like, it's not basing your worth or your success or what you're going to do on anything from the outside. But having an awareness, but not an attachment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I had known that when I was like 15.
Right? The most challenging phase of my life was like the couple of years where I had no work, very little work, very little income, very little like external validation.
Uh-huh.
And I had to look in the mirror and I was actually just like not producing much creative anything.
Yeah.
But to be able to go days on end, weeks on end, maybe even a couple of months on end without producing anything, receiving anything, and to be able to look myself in the mirror and be like, I'm worthy. I have something to offer.
So hard.
Like that was the hardest shit ever.
Yeah.
And I think it's the most profound thing that now I think I'm just like more relaxed in my career because I'm like, why? You know,
Right.
I knew that I had something to offer when I had nothing to offer. I cannot succumb to this feeling of unworthiness in the space of absence of creative expression and feedback and communication. Because if I do, like, you kind of know there's no coming out of that.
There's no coming out. It's like being like, who am I if I'm not a dancer? Can you tell everybody where we can find your music and information about you and what you're doing? And
my music is on all streaming platforms under the name Lisa Forkish.
Okay.
And I'll give a little plug, like, if you listen to music in a lot of different ways and you want to support the artist, Bandcamp is the way.
All right, Bandcamp. Forkish.
Because we make like a cent per every stream, totally. But if you are going to download the album, we make like also like a cent from Apple Music, but on Bandcamp it's like 80%.
Okay.
Yes. So just if you're into downloading music, that's where you should download it. And then Queer Choir Collective.
Yes. For youth also.
Yes, is my business that I'm running. We're in the process of transitioning to becoming a larger queer arts organization, hopefully even getting a brick and mortar. So we can have a queer arts center in Eugene.
Yeah,
Why don't we have a queer arts center in Eugene?
We totally
queerchoircollective.com is where you can find, and we have stuff for everybody. We got a youth program now. We got a grant from Lane Arts Council, which is really exciting.
Congratulations. Yes.
And then you don't have to have singing experience to join queer choir. You just have to identify as queer.
And if you come into Ringscape, we have flyers on the front desk. For the youth program too. So if you're in here and you're in Eugene.
Yes. And From the Ashes is the name of my newest album. I should say that too. Vanessa, I am so honored to have been invited to be a guest on your amazing
Of course!
And I'm so excited about like being your friend.
Yeah!
I'm like really impressed and in awe and just like, I know, not in a weird way, but proud.
It's okay.
I'm proud of you. I like you. What you're doing is so incredible, and and this conversation was just really got me fired up.
Good. And I just feel like thank you for saying that, first of all, because I think one of the reasons why I really want to do this is because it's not as easy as it looks, and it's hard to stay motivated. It's hard, and it comes in waves. And just to talk with people and know that other people are also in waves and building and regenerating themselves constantly is so, it just makes you feel human. And it's okay, I can do it another fucking day.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I'm excited to listen to all the other episodes too. I just feel like this conversation and all the different perspectives is going to be really inspiring and restorative for a lot of people. Just to be able to hear all the ways that this process unfolds.
Yes. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you,
behind the camera. Coming up, baby.